Today we're going to talk about databases and primary keys in tables. So first off, let's give an example why you might want a primary key. So we're going to use this table that I created earlier, and it has no indexes, it has no primary keys, it just has some data. And if we run a query against it and we look at the query plan, the first thing we're going to notice is we have a table scan. Now that obviously is a very easy fix, shall we say, because we can simply go ahead and create an index. Now the reason we might not want to do that in every occasion is the overhead that indexes create. As an example, for every index you have a read and a write operation. So when you're inserting, deleting or updating, it has to insert, delete and update that index. So we can see here our index fulfills this query. And if you have only one query, that's awesome. But if you have multiple queries, and here's an example, we have now a second query and it is not fulfilled by that first index, so we're back to having a table scan. Now that is suboptimal for multiple reasons, one of which is table scans do take longer and there is more of a locking mechanism involved, which prevents other queries from running as easy. So if we go ahead and create a primary key, that will do two things. One, it will add a unique column value. Now in this case, since the table didn't have that value to start with, which would normally be the first value in your created table, it's going to add another column at the end. So our select star statement is now going to return an extra column that previously we didn't have. Now that's obviously an easy fix, and again, going back to best practices here, you should not be using select star because it does have an overhead in terms of CPU, simply because SQL needs to go look up what the columns are. So please don't use it. Also, it avoids situations like this where adding a value or adding a column would then impact your query and the output that you're getting. So there is an explicit reason why we tell you not to use select star. Anyway, let's put that aside and look at our output. So now we have this query running. We're no longer getting table scans because we're hitting the clustered index because of the primary key. However, because of the select star, we're getting extra column values that we were not previously expecting. So we just go ahead and modify our query to use the explicit columns. What we'll find is, again, we'll hit the clustered index because there's no specific index to make it run any faster, but still obviously a clustered index is better than no index. And number two, we will now get the columns that we wanted. This means that by using a primary key, you can avoid a lot of overhead with ad hoc queries, potentially blocking tables, but also it allows you to have a temporary patch, if you will, to a lot of tuning performance, because you will always have something rather than nothing. And this improves the overall performance of your queries, even if they are not optimized by having a specific index to work with their exact data sets. And this is something that gives a good reason for having a primary key, along with locking.